Today at Palmetto Publishing, we have the privilege to sit down with Michael Anderson here. She's a best-selling author renowned for the captivating Zoe London series. This book series not only revolves around STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but it also delves into some really important themes of friendship, inclusivity, confronting bullies, navigating school drama, and fostering a love for education, which is really special. Michael has achieved remarkable success. She sold over 11,000 copies. She secured placement for her books on the shelves of Barnes & Noble, and she's formed a partnership with the Girl Scouts of America to enable girls nationwide to earn her distinctive reading badge, which is so cool, Michael. I love that. We recognize so many different authors that we work with at Palmetto, and we understand that a lot may grapple with questions, misconceptions, or simply just feel lost at kind of the process of it all. There's a lot to work on. I'm sure you can agree to that. But our goal is really just to address any genuine queries that authors may have. And so today we're going to chat about kind of some of those questions that pop up regularly while exploring Michael's story as well and its impact on fellow authors. So thanks so much for being here with us today, Michael. We're really excited to kind of learn more about your series and your experience with Palmetto. So thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate you having me, Britta. I'm looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to this for about a week. Let's chop it up.
Can you share with us kind of the story behind your first book, Zoe London's Big Move, and the impactful message conveyed in the series?
When I first started writing Zoe London's Big Move to the Lou, I had the story, I had the manuscript, but I didn't really know what to do after that. And I think that that's how a lot of authors feel is, what do they do next? I just started kind of looking into how to move to the next step, YouTubing, all those things, overwhelmed. And that's eventually how I found Palmetto because to me, it was just too overwhelming. The story of Zoe Linden came about because I have two daughters. My daughters both are STEM majors. I really wish that a story like this series would have been available to them, would have been accessible to them, because I think it's important for all kids to be able to see themselves represented in the stories that they read.
I'm so glad that you brought up your daughters, your new book that's out now, Crush Chronicles, and you said a lot of your inspiration for kind of that texting lingo and how kind of teenage girls act was driven by your two daughters. Can you share a little bit more about that?
I can see that texting is really big, the group chats is really big, but it's really important to have relevant wording and text and dialogue. And so as I was writing, it sounded really cool and great to me, but my 20-something-year-old daughters who were proofing, some of my work, they just like to read and see what's happening. They were like, oh no, Mom, we can't do this. And so I think staying at the pulse of what's relevant, so that could be your children, your nieces, other people around you, but just kind of staying immersed in that culture, right? You're writing relevant stories. It's easy to make those connections when your readers are picking them up and reading. And so just pay attention to what's happening around me and in my space.
So you talked a little bit about when you started your publishing journey, you went online, you began to do some research. What led you to ultimately discover Palmetto Publishing during that initial search?
Looking at, 3 different companies. Palmetto was actually the third one that I spoke with in the last one. After interviewing or having my consult, all of my fears, my concerns, my anxiety, and they understood it and were able to package it in a way that they could just kind of walk me through this thing. And that's, precisely what sold me on Palmetto.
You looked at several other companies. How were the conversations or kind of the process different with those other companies?
It was just a feeling. After that initial conversation, when I walked away, I felt like I didn't really have any more questions. You know what I mean? I felt like they fully understood where I was at and answered my questions. With Palmetto, even with me not actually asking the question, they understood and were kind of answering some of those questions before I can even ask them. And that just, made me feel so much better, like they got it.
After you decided to choose Palmetto and started to move forth with the process itself, what's one thing that pleasantly surprised you about the publishing process?
I talked to a lot of different people. I can remember talking to someone and working with someone named Aaron and Kristen, but honestly, it didn't even matter who I worked with. I think everyone was extremely professional. Everyone was helpful, felt like a cohesive team, regardless of who I was working with. And so that was a pleasant surprise.
What advice do you have for authors starting the self-publishing process with Palmetto?
Speak up. So if there's not something that if you don't know something, ask a question. There's lots of questions in the beginning. And I think sometimes for me, even getting an answer, it's like I don't fully understand because I haven't really been through the process. And so when I talk about the process, I'm talking about from the inception of the book to the birth of the book when it's in your hand. And so there's a lot of steps in between there. And I feel like until you get through that process, there's just a lot of things that you don't fully understand. Um, Speak up, but speak up about your vision. Like, don't allow your vision to get lost because that's ultimately what you're trying to put out. And so you have these professionals who are assisting and helping and aiding, but you want to maintain your story and whatever that vision is for you, for yourself. So make sure that you stay true to that.
You shared a, a story with me when we had originally chatted. This was kind of after the publishing process about a little girl who had struggled with dyslexia, but she was able to read with ease due to the formatting of the book, which is something that we had just talked about as well, that you had learned more about during the publishing process. Can you share a little bit more on that special story as well as how some elements like cover formatting, editing selection, those can impact readers?
It matters, obviously, when you're talking about formatting because the the format and the font and the layout and the way that the pages were presented and the words popping off the pages was done in such a nice, smooth way that even though I wasn't thinking about the person at the end reading and what difficulty they may have reading, it had a pleasant. I mean, she had a very pleasant time with the story and was able to overcome that disability. She was fearful, anxiety, but she got through it. And for her to share that with me, it was, that was precious. Like that was really special. And that happened probably when the story first came out. And here we are 4 years later. And I still remember that like it was yesterday.
Had quite a bit of success with marketing your book. I know we have chatted in the past about you did a lot of prep and things like that. What strategies did you employ to gain traction?
I was all over the place, if I can be honest. I feel like I was just doing everything and I didn't know what I was doing. But I think in doing just all of this stuff, there were some things that stuck. The things that stuck were the things that I was naturally good at. So when I just, stopped trying to do what everybody else was doing and paid attention to, okay, well, Michael, what are your strengths? What are you good at? And that's when things started to come together for me. And so I just started trying to think, how can I leverage some of these networks that I'm in? And Girl Scouts was kind of the first one that I feel like I took a stab at because again, I was doing all this stuff and nothing was really working. So when I stepped back and I just kind of took a stab at something and it stuck and it took off like a wildfire, I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna start kind of doing what I'm really kind of good at and just kind of focus my energy there. And so for me personally, 90% of my energy goes towards those things that I feel like I'm naturally good at. If you're a part of organizations, like if you are an educator and you're part of a PTA, maybe start where you are. If you are not a part of an organization, maybe start looking for some organizations that are in your community that have literacy thrust for your genre or for your age group that you've written your book for. You have to be consistent with that work because I feel like a lot of the success is being consistent, showing up, establishing relationships. I can give you a blueprint, but there's things that you have to implement, before you can get to the blueprint. You have to still have a relationship. You still have to show up. So a blueprint is just a blueprint. People like the Girl Scout badge concept, but then it's like they want a step by step. How do you do that? How does that happen? So I can just make up a badge and tie it to my book and just market it. And I'm like, you're missing the point. You can't, I mean, you can try that, but you have to put in the work. And I think that's what people need to understand is that you can't make shortcuts. You can't circumvent the process. You have to establish yourself so that people trust you. And when people trust you, then I think opportunities open up when they trust you.
Successfully secured placement for your book on the shelves of Barnes and Noble. How can authors aim to enhance the accessibility of their books to attract more readers and boost sales? And can you kind of share a little bit about the story of getting your books into Barnes and Noble?
Make sure you have a high quality book, period. Palmetto to me was very instrumental in making sure that I had the manuscript, but they put everything together in such a way that it was just a really high quality book and it looked like it can be in any bookstore. And so I think that that is where you start out at is you want to have the best product that you can have. Once you do have that, um, it's just a matter of kind of opening your mouth and, putting the initiative out there. I was told no several times, but that's okay. First store was not a Barnes and Nobles. It was just a small local bookshop. I went there, I was on consignment, the book sold, and then I went to another bookshop. So before I went to Barnes and Nobles, I was actually in two local bookstores. When I went to Barnes and Nobles, I think the fourth time, because they told me yes on the fourth time, I was already selling books into these other local bookstores. I was already doing my Girl Scouts initiative that I've been doing. And so I think they just kind of took a chance because at that point I had established sales. So I was able to communicate with them how many sales that I have made up to this point, that I'm in some of these other local bookstores, that I work and partner with Girl Scouts. So went to Barnes and Nobles the very first time. I went full blown with marketing and promoting and trying to get bodies into the store. When they said I can come in and have a book signing, I didn't leave that to Barnes and Nobles. I didn't leave. I wanted to make sure that I made the most of this opportunity, and so I told everybody that I could, and it was amazing.
So you utilize a couple different tools such as agencies to book events. You've got a media kit as well. Can you shine some light on those tools and how those may be helpful for authors to have?
My media kit is on like 2 pages, but there's other individuals, authors who might have a 6-page media kit. So first of all, if you don't know what it is, look into that and see if that's something that could benefit you. Maybe I'm going to be on the TV news, or maybe I'm going to be on some program locally, or maybe I want to get my books into a school and I'm talking to a superintendent. It's a blurb about me, who I am, what my mission is, what books I offer, the focus behind the books, how they can get their hands on the books, the ISBN, where would they order? Like, it has all of that detailed information.
4 million books were published in 2022. What guidance would you offer to authors seeking to make a mark and kind of stand out from the crowd?
The packaging, to me, is where Palmetto came in, is helping me to put it all together in a package that looked appealing. And I can't tell you how often I've heard people say, "Oh my gosh, I love the cover." Like, like I just love the cover. Working with you all in getting a cover and putting everything together, because again, this was at the beginning. I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't even know where to go to or who to speak to actually talk about building a cover or creating a cover. And so that was just another feather in Palmetto's cap, because you all knew how to do those things. Yeah, you guys packaged this in such a way. It makes it easy for me to sell.
Where do you get your ideas for some of the content that you come up with?
Follow other authors, and I kind of just see, authors that are in my genre. And I see what they do, and some of them we just kind of naturally gravitate towards, right? And so those are the people I'm like, oh, I like that. And so I'll look, I might consider doing something like that, but there's certain authors that I just follow and I gravitate towards. I will say, I think it's very important to have an accountability partner. It has been so rewarding for me to stay accountable, to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, make sure I'm writing what I'm supposed to write, because we're just doing this. We're independent authors. A lot of us have other jobs. We're not doing this full time. You know, it's easy to get into something else, and so I think um, I cannot stress how important it is to have a writing buddy or an accountability partner. I feel like these things really help you to reach your goals so much faster.
You mentioned that you will look at other indie authors that are in your genre to kind of get some inspiration. Can you share some of those accounts who kind of provide that inspiration for you?
Author LB Ann, so L as in Lori, B as in best, Anne, Anne. She's probably one of my biggest cheerleaders, but I absolutely love her. She is an indie author and she is killing it. She has like tons of series out. Um, and I get so much inspiration from her. Tanya Duncan Ellis is another one. These are people that I've become friends with over, you know, this process, this journey, and so those are really good accounts to follow.
When you first set out to publish your book, how did you define success then, and how do you define success now? How would you say things have changed
Wow.
for you?
Oh yeah, big change. I think in the beginning, I thought, oh wow, you know, if I could sell, you know, 1,000 books, or if I could sell 3,000 books, I thought, wow, that was something. Like I did it. Um, what I did not expect was in my first month, I probably sold, you know, 700 books. Like I had no idea. I don't even know how I did it. And then the second month, it was the same thing. And so here I am thinking like 1,000 to 3,000. And, you know, within those first 2 months, it was like, okay, well, I can't really say that right now because that just kind of happened. And so things, you know, quickly changed. Um, I got to, you know, roughly a little over 11,000. And so now what I see as success is the sales is definitely part of it. And I have, you know, friends who are selling, you know, 50,000, 100,000 units of their books. But I think also what I look at is um, trust. I want to build trust. I want people to, I want to build a brand. I want people to recognize my name, my stories, and know that it is something that they want for their children or to put in their home or in their classroom. And so I'm more focused now on that.
What are your future aspirations for the series? Or will we get more Zoe London books? Will you switch genres?
Mhm.
Have you ever thought about going into something other than children's books?
So there's definitely another Zoe Linden book that's going to be coming. But I also know that I want to switch and transition into something other than Zoe Linden. I believe the voice is still going to be middle grade, but not early middle grade. So this is right now, this is kind of like that early middle grade. I'm thinking maybe more upper middle grade for the next work that I want to do. I really don't know that I'll stay in children, but I kind of feel like that's my voice. So for the foreseeable future, anyway, I think that I will stay probably early middle grade, young adult possibly, but I can't really see getting too far away from that because I just feel like everything that comes is in that form.
Everything you've done thus far has been amazing, and we can't wait to see what you do next. It was so wonderful to chat with you today. We're so thankful that you chose Palmetto to kind of go through this process with you, and all the success of your book and kind of all the marketing you've done afterwards is truly inspiring to so many people. So I'm really glad that we could highlight you today. So thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait for authors to be able to see this content, kind of learn more about you and your story. Authors, if you're interested in kind of seeing this full video, you can find it on our YouTube. We also have a link in our Instagram bio to Michael's Amazon page that will lead you to purchase any of her books and check those out. They're really awesome. And then you can follow her on social media as well. We'll have her accounts linked down below. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks, Brenna.